How to heal your inner child. The first step to self-love. Carl Jung's key to inner peace inside you. There is a voice you've silenced for years, a small, fragile part of yourself that still cries for safety, for love, for someone to finally say, "I see you. And I'm not leaving." You've felt it before, that's that sudden wave of sadness, the fear of rejection, the need to be perfect just to feel worthy. These aren't random emotions. They are echoes of a little child within you who still believes they're not enough. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So ask yourself, why do you sabotage your own happiness? Why do you chase love that never lasts? Why do you feel empty even when everything seems fine? The truth is, your inner child, the part of you shaped by early pain, unmet needs, and emotional neglect, is still guiding your adult life. But what if that could change? What if the path to self-love isn't about becoming someone new, but finally listening to who you've always been? Today you'll discover how healing this forgotten part of yourself is not just a concept. It's the most important act of self-respect, emotional freedom, and inner peace you'll ever commit to. Stay with me until the end, because this isn't just another message. It's a homecoming. If you're here, it's not by accident. There's a part of you that's tired of carrying it all, in the pressure, the silence, the weight of never feeling fully seen. And maybe, just maybe, you're ready to begin again. Not by becoming someone new, but by remembering the part of you that's been waiting all along. Your inner child, Carl Jung, taught us that the path to self-love begins with wholeness. But wholeness only happens when we stop running from the parts of ourselves that hurt and start listening to them instead. That's what this video is here to help you do. And if you feel called to go even deeper, very soon we'll be making available on the channel a powerful digital book on how to heal your inner child, a guide rooted in Carl Jung's psychology and built on real, practical insights. This transformative material has already helped people around the world break free from emotional cycles and reclaim their inner power. Now it will be within your reach too. This isn't just content. It's for those who are truly ready to close the door on pain and begin a new chapter of peace and self-respect. The ebook will be available in the pinned comment starting tomorrow or no later than Sunday. But don't worry, even here on YouTube, you'll continue to find deep, powerful content to support your journey. If this message speaks to you, subscribe now and turn on the bell. This space was created for your healing. Now, let's begin. We grow up believing that time heals everything, that the past fades and the future saves. But no matter how far you run or how much you achieve, something inside you still feels incomplete. It's a quiet ache, a silent emptiness, and no one taught us how to face it, only how to hide it. Carl Jung called this emptiness the voice of the unconscious, and one of its loudest messengers is the wounded inner child, the part of you that once felt abandoned, unseen, unprotected, and never fully healed. You may not remember the exact moment, but your body does. That time you were told to stop crying. That time your feelings were dismissed. That time you needed affection and were met with silence. And so you adapted. You became what others needed. You smiled when it hurt. You worked hard for love. You became strong by suppressing softness, but that child never left. She's still there, buried beneath your daily roles, your endless responsibilities, your survival mode, the way you apologize too often, the fear of saying no, the shame after, showing emotion. That's not the adult you. That's your inner child still trying to be accepted, still trying to avoid rejection, still terrified of being left behind. Carl Jung taught that healing is not about eliminating the past, it's about integrating it. The unconscious drives us until we choose to see it. That's why you repeat emotional patterns. That's why love sometimes hurts more than it heals. That's why self-love feels like a foreign language you never learned. Many of us were never taught emotional safety. We were taught to behave, to achieve, to please. So we developed masks. The strong one, the fixer, the quiet one, the overachiever. But none of these masks speak to who we really are, because who we really are is still waiting to be heard. The wounds of your inner child don't disappear with age. They evolve. They appear in toxic relationships, They echo in self-sabotage. They whisper in moments of loneliness. They scream when you abandon yourself for the approval of others. And yet, there's hope. There is a path, not out of the pain, but through it. Healing begins when you stop running and start listening. When you no longer shame yourself for feeling too much, wanting too deeply, or breaking down at the smallest trigger. Because those reactions aren't weakness. They're signals. Messages from a younger you who never felt safe enough to express. Zen teachings remind us that awareness without judgment is the first act of healing. When you observe your pain instead of rejecting it, something shifts. You stop being afraid of your own emotions. You stop being at war with yourself. Think about how many times you've said, "I don't know why I feel this way." But your body knows. Your nervous system remembers. That child inside you remembers. Every unmet need. Every time love was earned instead of given freely. Every moment you were told, "You're too much" or "not enough." That child built walls to survive. But now those walls keep out not just pain, but joy too. Carl Jung believed that the journey to wholeness, the process he called individuation, requires us to reclaim all the parts we've left behind. Especially the tender ones. Especially the ones we've been told to hide. And here's the truth, you will never feel truly loved until you learn to love that child inside you. Not by fixing her, not by silencing her, but by sitting beside her. Listening, holding space, telling her, "You're safe now, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere." It's in that quiet moment, when you stop running from your pain and start embracing it, that healing begins. You stop performing for love. You stop begging for validation. You stop fearing abandonment. Because you realize the one you've been waiting for is you. This isn't about going back in time, it's about changing your relationship with it. Instead of repeating the patterns, you begin to rewrite them. You begin to speak to yourself with kindness. You set boundaries without guilt. You stop settling for what hurts. The world may never apologize for what it took from you. But you can choose to give back what you've always needed. Compassion, presence, truth, love, not earned, but given freely. And that choice made moment by moment is how you begin again. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't always look like breakthroughs or tears or sudden awakenings. Sometimes it's quiet. It's choosing to pause when your impulse is to run. It's noticing the knot in your chest and asking where it came from instead of pushing it away. It's replacing self-judgment with curiosity. Carl Jung believed that true transformation begins when we stop rejecting the parts of ourselves we were taught to hide. And the inner child is often the most rejected part of all. Not because we don't care, but because we don't know how to care for what still feels so raw. But she doesn't need perfection. She doesn't need you to be fixed. She only needs your presence. And presence, Neville, is how we shift the entire course of our emotional lives. Most of us carry unconscious contracts, silent agreements we made with ourselves long ago. I must be perfect to be loved. If I speak up, I'll be abandoned. My needs don't matter. These beliefs are invisible, but they run our lives like scripts written in childhood and never updated. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, every time you feel guilt for resting, every time you chase love that feels familiar, even if it hurts, you're not weak, you're loyal to a story that was never yours to carry. But now, you're allowed to write a new one. Jung's work teaches us that healing is a process of integration, not suppression. It means we no longer split ourselves between the version we show to the world and the version we hide in the dark. It means we stop abandoning ourselves just to keep others close. The moment you begin to witness your own emotions without shame, you create space for healing. That's when the child inside you no longer feels alone. That's when her pain begins to loosen its grip. So how do you reconnect? You begin by listening, not just with your ears, but with your attention. The next time you feel triggered, instead of reacting, ask yourself, who in me is speaking right now? Is it the adult who knows their worth? Or is it the child who once had to earn love through silence or performance? This question changes everything, because when you recognize it's the child reacting, you can meet her with compassion instead of judgment. You can pause and offer her what no one else did. I hear you, I'm here. You're not wrong for feeling this way. That is how we reparent ourselves, not through force, not through fixing, but through presence. Zen teachings echo this truth, that peace begins the moment we stop resisting what is. And your inner child is not a problem to solve. She is a part of you longing to belong. Give her permission to speak. Let her write. Let her draw. Let her cry. Let her be curious again. Return to the things that once made you feel free, even if you were told they were silly or childish or a waste of time, because that joy, that freedom, that lightness, that's not childish. That's you, unburdened. One of the most profound acts of healing is learning how to speak to yourself differently. When something goes wrong, do you say, "I'm such an idiot," or "I'm doing my best and that's enough"? Your inner child is listening, and every word you speak inside your mind becomes part of her reality. So make that voice a soft place to land. Make it kind, make it warm. Make it the one voice she can trust always. And if you make mistakes, good. That means you're human. That means you're learning. Carl Jung never spoke of perfection. He spoke of wholeness. And wholeness means embracing every part of you, the brave and the scared, the light and the shadow. There will be days when you feel like you've healed, and then something will trigger you again. This doesn't mean you've failed. It means you've reached another layer, another invitation to go deeper. So don't run. Stay. Ask yourself, what does this part of me need right now? And give it without guilt. You may not have received the love you needed back then, but you can become the one who gives it now. And when you do, and when you meet yourself with that kind of tenderness, something extraordinary happens. The shame begins to lift, the guilt begins to soften, and the child inside you no longer has to beg to be seen, because she is finally being loved by the one who matters most, you. When you begin healing your inner child, the world doesn't change, but the way you experience it does. You stop begging for crumbs of affection because you've learned to nourish yourself from within. You stop chasing validation because you've discovered your own voice, and now it matters more than anyone else's. You stop tolerating what drains you because peace is no longer a luxury. It's your baseline. Carl Jung believed that as we integrate the unconscious, especially the wounded parts we've rejected, we become more whole, more real, more rooted in who we truly are. And as you begin to nurture the child within, your relationships begin to shift. You start to recognize what love feels like when it's not tied to performance. You see more clearly who is willing to meet you in truth, and who only stays when you remain small. And that clarity, it's a gift. It doesn't always feel like joy in the beginning. Sometimes it feels like grief, because when you grow, you outgrow. You outgrow old dynamics. You outgrow people who thrived on your silence. You outgrow the need to be understood by those who never saw you clearly. But as painful as that can be, it's also liberation. The more you anchor into your inner truth, the more you become emotionally sovereign. And that's when you begin to love without attachment, to give without depletion, to walk away without guilt. You begin to understand what Jung meant when he said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." You are no longer a product of your past. You're the architect of your present, and that changes everything. Think of how many times you've compromised your needs to keep someone close. How many times you've silenced your intuition to avoid conflict. How often you've felt the tension in your body and ignored it to preserve harmony. But now, you're learning to listen to that tightness in your chest, to that heaviness in your stomach, to the inner whisper that says, "This doesn't feel safe, this isn't love." And that's what maturity looks like. Not the absence of emotion, but the courage to honor what you feel without needing others to approve of it. This new relationship with yourself will start to affect everything. You begin to set boundaries. That once terrified you, not because you're cold, but because you've learned to stay warm toward yourself. You begin to speak your truth, not to convince, but to express. Because hiding is no longer your default. Visibility is. You begin to create a life that reflects your healing, not your history. Even your environment starts to change. You become more intentional with who you allow into your space. You notice how certain people leave you drained and others bring you home to yourself. You begin to value solitude, not as loneliness, but as sacred space. And slowly, you stop seeing pain as the enemy. You begin to understand its wisdom. That sadness isn't a failure, it's a signal. That anger isn't dangerous, it's a boundary you were taught to ignore. That anxiety isn't weakness, it's your body remembering where it wasn't safe, and in this awareness you reclaim your power. Zen teachings remind us, when you sit with your suffering instead of fighting it, you create space for transformation. Not because suffering is noble, but because presence is healing. So you learn to pause, to breathe through the trigger, to ask, is this old pain or current truth? And that moment of pause, that breath of awareness, gives you back your freedom. Because now your reactions aren't automatic. Your choices are no longer fueled by fear. You are no longer living in defense of your wounds, but in alignment with your truth, and others will feel that. They may not always understand it, but they'll feel it. Your presence will change rooms. Your boundaries will challenge patterns. Your self-love will make others reflect on where they've abandoned themselves. And yes, some will pull away. But the ones meant to stay, they'll rise to meet you in your light, because that's what wholeness does. It attracts what aligns and repels what doesn't, not as punishment, but as protection. You're not meant to carry people who refuse to grow. You're not here to keep shrinking to be loved. You are here to return to yourself, fully, fiercely, and without apology. This is the silent power of healing your inner child. You reclaim the joy you forgot. You rebuild the trust you lost. You restore the connection between your mind, your heart, and your soul. And with every step you take, you send a message to that younger version of you. I'm not abandoning you anymore. You belong here, with me, forever. Somewhere inside you, there's still a child holding out hope. Hope that someone will finally understand, that someone will sit beside their pain without trying to fix it, rush it, or minimize it. That someone will simply say, you matter, just as you are. And maybe for the first time that someone, as Carl Jung taught, that the journey toward wholeness doesn't begin with becoming someone new. It begins with remembering who you were before the world told you to hide. Before you were taught that love had to be earned. Before you believed you had to become perfect just to be enough. This isn't about rewriting your story to pretend the pain didn't happen. It's about learning to hold that pain with compassion. To recognize that every scar shaped you, but none of them define you. If you've made it this far in the video, it's because some part of you knows you're ready. Ready to break the cycle. Ready to stop abandoning yourself. Ready to stop shrinking to fit into places that never truly saw you. The healing path isn't easy. It's layered. Some days you'll feel strong. Other days you'll feel like you're starting over. But every time you choose to stay with yourself, to be kind, to listen, to show up, you're taking another step toward freedom, and you don't have to do it alone. This space, this channel, was created for you. For the parts of you that never had a safe place to speak. For the thoughts you've never been able to share out loud. For the healing that doesn't happen in therapy alone, but in moments like this when you feel truly seen. So if this message touched something inside you, if it felt like someone finally put your feelings into words, if you want to continue this journey of healing and self-discovery, I invite you to subscribe. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. We are building something here, a space where psychology meets soul, where Jung's timeless wisdom is brought to life in a way that meets you where you are. And very soon we'll be releasing something powerful, a transformational digital book on healing your inner child, rooted in Carl Jung's teachings, and based on real practical guidance that's already helped people around the world. So stay close. Keep an eye on the pinned comments and community posts. This could be the step you've been waiting for. And until then, be gentle with yourself. Speak to your heart like it's listening, because it is. And remember, you are not broken. You are becoming. I'll see you in the next video. And in the meantime, share your thoughts in the comments. Let's walk this path together.